David, what's going on?
I'm here talking to you, ready to bare my soul, whatever you want to ask.
I like it. And yeah, super excited to have you on today. And I think for you, like you've done a lot of different types of things, which is awesome, right? Between the ultra running, right, pushing yourself personally, but also growing, scaling, and exiting a business. And I appreciate your kind of pre-recording conversation around like, hey, let's dig deep and talk about it. So if you want to give the listeners some of your background, but from there, we want to dig into what it was like growing that company.
Cool. Yeah, I'm usually not good at this. It's more the humility aspect. So I'll try. So on the professional front, this was the third company I was a part of as far as starting it. But this is the first time we took a big swing. So we started Digible in April of 2017. That I was probably, I don't know, maybe 32. Started with what became my wife and then a third founder. And we built that company, bootstrapped it from the three of us. When we founded the company, we actually got sued by our former employer, so we can talk about that. But we got off to a really rocky start, put us hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt legally. And then, but we were able to muster through and push through, and we had a tech side of the business, and then we had a digital services side of the business. So we were lead gen for multifamily apartments, and we grew that till now. 8 years later, there's about 130 people. I'd say 100-ish of them on the service side or tech-enabled service side, and 30 or so, or well, maybe like 20 that are more like tech and product, and then 10 that are more what's called like corporate operations. And the run rate is doing about 80 million in revenue or so. Um, it'll probably cross the 100 million threshold this year would be my expectation. So it's a really tough first 5 years of the company before we got to break even in profitability. But from then on, it's been really good and just trying to scale responsibly. And then personally, as you mentioned, I've done a lot of endurance stuff. So I've been ultra running for 22 years at this point. I do more adventure running than official competitions, but most notably, I had previously set a world record for longest distance on a treadmill in 12 hours. And I took another crack at the 100-mile treadmill record a couple of years ago, but I had a bad day. So I still feel like that's unfinished business. Um, and then, yeah, I do a lot of just other adventure running. Like we did base camp to the summit of Aconcagua this past December in like 6 hours. So that usually takes people 2 weeks as far as their expedition. So, yeah, but wherever you want to take it from there, Sam, I hope I did justice.
Yeah. No, it's really cool too, and I'm glad you can mix in the personal stuff there as well. 100 miles on a treadmill, like I couldn't imagine that. I played baseball my whole life growing up too, and like we did some sprints here and there too, but just never that kind of distance or endurance, and just what goes into that, right? I feel like at that point it's part physical, but I feel like it's a lot of just mental wherewithal to go finish that.
Yeah, if we back up, my when I was super young, my grandfather used to always tell us stories like before bed, like of his own personal life versus reading stories. And I remember I must have been like 6 years old, and I was like, "Ah, Grandpa, it's too bad I'll never have stories like you," because he got his stories were kind of like Huckleberry uh, Finn or like Tom Sawyer type stories. And he was like, "You'll make your own stories." And I just didn't have the faith that I would. And then as I got older, I realized like taking chances, doing like failing, those are good stories. And so what my through line, and this I'm sort of jumping ahead, but it was only the last 2 years I figured this out, but is that I really get energized by trying to live a life of adventure. So whether it's a life of adventure with family, with fitness, with um, professionally. And it's whatever makes a better story is kind of the direction I like to take. And so when it comes to the treadmill, I'm not the most gifted athlete, but I am fairly mentally strong, and I can just kind of like, I can grind. And so the treadmill just sort of came about because I had a buddy that actually broke the record before that's far more talented than I am. And so once he broke it, I was like, oh, shoot, but I could actually break what Dennis did. I think I could do better. So I contacted him, and he was like, good luck, man. Like, I'm never doing that again. And so it was more of an adventure to me versus like, I don't feel like I was really qualified. There's much more talented people, runners than I am, but just nobody seems to want to do it on a treadmill. So after the first success on a treadmill, I was like, man, I actually think I could do the 100-mile record as well. I think that's obtainable. Um, so while I did do the 100 on the treadmill, I didn't set the record, so I still got to come back to it. But to me, it comes back to the adventure. It's like, it's just a good story. It's like, I don't do a lot of my training on the treadmill. It's more of just like this thing that would be good at parties to talk about or what, even though I don't go to parties, but whatever. It seems adventurous to me. So we'll see if I do another one, because right now I have enough treadmill stories, and now I'm trying to make other stories. But yeah, it's more for me. I can do anything for a day, and that's basically what a treadmill is, right? You just got to spend a day running on the thing, and that's fine. So hopefully that gets to your answer of like how
Yeah,
you get
yeah,
into
yeah,
it for
yeah.
me.
No, it's really cool to go think about that way, right? Of like accomplishing things in only sprints for a day of just what would actually make a really cool story, and what would go make people or make yourself just think differently than you have for a period of time, right? And what was that time in the treadmill? Like, what's that record for 100 miles?
Right now, last I looked, it was like 12 hours and 40 minutes. My target time is just under 12 hours. I think that's kind of what I can do. That said, I think there are other people that could basically bump up against 11 hours. I think there are other people out there, if they really dedicated themselves to it, they could come close to breaking the 11-hour barrier, but that's just not me. Now, also, if I'm arguing the other way, when I broke the first record, I was at altitude and the room temperature was 86 degrees. So I think if I was like, let me go to like sea level, let me lower the temperature to like 45 degrees, maybe I could do like 11 and a half hours, but still the 11-hour mark seems really of a tall order for me personally. But I think there are other people out there that could do that.
Cool. And let's kind of pivot back to building your company. There's a few things that I want to dive into, right? One was you started the company with your now wife, right? I feel like that in partnerships can go very good or go very bad, especially dealing with some chaos early on too, in terms of the lawsuits, right, from the former company. Like, what was that dynamic like personally between you, her, and the other partner as you got off the ground, facing turbulence that early on?
Yeah, I mean it was tough. Basically, like the three of us had met at the Denver Post, Nicole, me, and Reed. Reed was being groomed to be CEO of the Post, but he was currently leading the sales department. So maybe 120 people or so reported up into him. Nicole was running operations and client services, so she had a team of, I think, 23 maybe. And then I was a sales rep. And Nicole and I, our relationship, we'd only started dating 3 months before we founded the company. But basically, Reed wasn't yet aware of it. But at the Post, somebody had leaked that that we had conversations before about starting a company, but we hadn't ever taken action on it. We just said, hey, one day, let's, wouldn't it be nice to leave corporate and do our own thing? But it was really exaggerated as far as what um, the Post thought we were doing. They were fed information that they thought we were um, just being almost malicious. They thought we were going to take clients. They thought we were using their credit card to fly around the country and sign clients and that kind of thing. And none of that was accurate. So anyways, they approached us or they approached Reed really and said, hey, we learned about this and we're going to need you to sign this lifelong non-compete. Um, and basically we would only be able to sell advertising for them for the rest of our lives. And now attorneys have told us that type of non-compete wouldn't hold up, but you still have to fight it. And so we're like, well, right now we don't have a non-compete and we don't have any non-solicitation. We don't have any agreement. So let's just walk away from them now and start our company. So that's what we did. We left on Friday, incorporated on Monday, and then they sued us on Wednesday. And that was a real lesson for me because I'm like, we don't have any paperwork. We didn't do anything wrong. So why are they suing us? And then we learned later, like, well, people can sue you for anything, whether there's truth or not. You still have to go through the lawsuit. So that was a learning experience. And they played pretty dirty at first. Like they were, the reason I found out we had the lawsuit is because I got tagged on Facebook. It was like, these former executives stole trade secrets and blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, this isn't accurate. And also it's weird to me that I'm getting tagged on Facebook versus like served papers before the story prints or whatever. So they were just throwing their weight around. And as I said, Nicole and I were only 3 months into our relationship or 4 months into our relationship, but it was more like a back against the wall for the three of us. So I think if it hadn't started that way, I don't know if the three of us would have left the company to form Digible together. I think we probably would have had somebody would have had golden handcuffs at any point in time. Like I had just bought a house 2 months earlier. Reed was the breadwinner for his family and was doing really well. So that's scary to walk away from. So I think it would kind of had to happen the way it happened for it to work. And then luckily Nicole and I, we'd already been working together for 2 years. So we had more of a working relationship than a romantic relationship. And our challenge was more, how do we be a couple while also still working? And reflecting back, I'm proud of how we handled it. Yet I think we could have been a better couple through the years. Cause I think like when we'd go out to events or like be with other people, we tried to always have them feel comfortable. So we'd actually put extra space between the two of us. We'd never like hold hands or put our arms around each other, like when everyone else has their spouse there. And so in some ways we just stunted some of the romantic relationship because we were spending so much time working. But it's something we've also been very cognizant of and have tried to put in the work since, like since I guess just through couples counseling and other things where like, let's just strengthen the relationship and try to build those inroads. But for the first few years, I'd say we were like putting more effort into the company than our relationship.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense too. Like almost feeling as though you have to go leave, right? In terms of the company itself, right? Like I gave you that ultimatum by the non-compete that just kind of forced you out that way as well. And you're right, too. I think a lot of our listeners as well are people who are doing well in corporate, right? Mid six-figure employees who are super comfortable. And there's not that urgency to go out and do your own thing. I think for you, you mentioned this was your third company, though, right? Or two?
Yeah, so there was one where I was one of the first employees hired, and then there was another that I founded, and then there was this one.
Yeah, I think, at times, like for you, especially too, because you already had been in those seats beforehand, right? I think that urgency piece of it can kind of kick in for you. But I think for those listening who may be in that super comfortable corporate type role, like if you had to go think about it, where if one of you would have got those golden handcuffs, like what would you have seen yourself doing going forward if you didn't go start this company?
Of the three of us, I would have been the most likely one to go and do something. Um, I just am more risk averse. Didn't have attachments. Like Nicole didn't have attachments either, but she's more risk averse. And then Reed just has, a family to think about. So I think he would have been the hardest one to get to leave otherwise. For me, I think I would have played the corporate game for a little while, put some money in the bank, and then I probably would have gotten itchy and wanted to do something. But I had done the entrepreneurial track before, and this was more of following the entrepreneurial track. So I think, and I was having a lot of success there. Like my book of business when we left was 12 times the size of the next person. So like I was getting to experience trying to get people like where I don't have direct authority, but get them to sort of like follow my mission. But I would have capped out. They would have, and then I would have felt unfairly treated or like injustice being done, about like, hey, I'm doing the right thing for the company here. And that would have then made me like finally hit an emotional breaking point and be like, all right, I got enough in the bank account. I'm going to go do something. So I think I would have probably left. And then what would have been my struggle is I have a big deep seated trust issue. Just like, will people abandon me? So even in my former company that I started, I was like, I don't want to hire any people. I just want to do machines and do everything on my own. And with the fact that Reed, I, and Nicole got to leave together, that helped expand my horizon to say, okay, you can depend on people. If you set up the structure in the right way, you can mitigate those risks. And so I think the business got bigger than if I had been doing it just on my own and wanting to try to automate everything. And yet also I still have a little bit of like, all right, now there's even more potential to automate things and have fewer people involved because people do cause challenges.
And with that in mind too, I mean, to sidebar for a second too, like I was in a similar spot to yourself where I kind of played the corporate ladder game myself, right? Made it up to being kind of in a position that Reed was in, right? Where you run a whole sales organization, 100 plus people reporting to you, great commission, but you kind of get to that place where you're still tapped out and put into a box, right? You still have to go check the operations and product and finance, right? And all these different pieces that you truly realize how capped out you are based on opportunity and how much say everyone else has in what you're doing. So I totally get it, kind of playing that route for a handful of years myself and then saying, okay, that's about as high as I can get. And then now it's just causing just like that itchiness and frustration to be there, and you become bitter, right? I think I got out right after I started being bitter. I think for you, it was great getting out when you did. Um, but pivoting that too with the people you've now grown with, right? You went from solo person, systems automation to 130 employees, right? Walk us through what that path was like as you started growing and really how you adapted your mindset and mentality to allow more people to have control over your business or have their hands in the business as well.
Yeah, I mean, there were different levels there. Definitely, like, I knew that we needed to delegate things over time, and I couldn't be. So I had some sense that I couldn't be involved in every campaign. So just backing up a second, the multifamily space that we were in, it acts much like the franchise space. And so today, Digible has 3,000 direct clients, and then probably another close to 3,000 white label clients. And so you have thousands of clients, and so you can't get involved in every single one. But that wasn't how it was day one. So it was more of like, let me figure out where I can add the most value. And early on, it was sales, and then it came into like company structure, company strategy. Then it came into like partnerships. So for me, it worked really well that the company was always accelerating, growing quickly, because I like to learn something, try it out, play with it, and then I kind of want to move on to the next thing. It it's it's not in me to like kind of buckle down and do the same thing forever if it's something I'm passionate about. And so for work, it was great because it could be like for the first few years, it was like, let's try to cobble this together as best we can. Then I think at about 12 people, I was starting to feel like, okay, this is not feeling very organized. That's when we learned about EOS. And so we got on EOS somewhere between like 12 and 20 people. And that was really exciting to like sort of like go through like the different stair steps of EOS and see how that could scale to 100 people. And then I'd say when we were at maybe 60 people, I had another sort of like big level up moment when I read Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. That was something I really struggled with. Back to that humility aspect. It's like even 18 months ago, we have an office space now that's like, I think it's like 15,000 square feet or something. And the toilet broke. And I went and spent 90 minutes fixing the toilet. And then afterwards, I'm like, well, shoot, Dan Martell would have said, David, what could you have generated for the company during that 90 minutes? And we didn't have an office manager yet, so I didn't want to ask anybody else to fix the toilet. But at the same time, I should have asked somebody else to fix the toilet because my time could have garnered more for the company had I spent that 90 minutes on a sales call or partnership call or something. And so that book was a nice awakening for me, and getting comfortable with. Dan Martell says like 80% done is 100% awesome. And that stuck with me because it's rarely was it up to how I would want to do it. And yet if you can get enough 80% done and you can accept it, you will go further. The challenge for me personally was like, is it okay that quality degrades a little bit, or it gets just a little bit like 2 degrees off of how you would have put it? And that was something I was still coming to terms with, but I felt more comfortable with that as we started to like actually pay ourselves market rate, or consider like, okay, should we take some like distributions or dividends from the company? Because then I could start to feel the 80%, 100% thing. When we over bootstrapped it. So when we were underpaying ourselves and it was still a struggle to be like, can I get guac on my Chipotle or not? That like when I'm making these sacrifices, I'm not feeling the reward. And that's where like Ramit Sethi's stuff, I think, or Sethi's stuff has done really well for me, where he's like, if you need to feel it. And I think the same in the business. Like if your business levels up, I feel like you need to also like, it sounded selfish to me in the past, but you need to take a little bit for yourself too, so that you start to recognize the reward and you don't start to resent the company. So Sam, hopefully that helps answer your question.
Yeah,
I had to
it
go through a
does.
few emotional development steps there.
It does, and it's a really interesting kind of balance place, right? Kind of going back to the story of Fix and Toilet, right? Where you have these employees where you want to feel as though you're accessible to them, right? You're not above them, but and it's a balance, right? Because you want to show like you'll still get your hands dirty, literally in your scenario, but you also want to show that you can still go take charge and make a big impact overall. And it's like a very fine line at times to go walk. I think that that point too, of like figuring out what you're actually worth to the company itself and working activities like that is really crucial. But I think it's a everyone goes through something like that to go figure that out. Like mine was, I used to own a portfolio of single family homes, and I'd go get on the phone with our contractors, or I'd go just sit on vendor calls I'd have to be on, and you feel more attached to it. But I think a big pivot of what you're making and what's so valid is that you need to be able to go start feeling the success, right? And actually paying yourself for it, whether it be in earnings or actually seeing it, where a lot of these earnings at times, it's paper net worth or paper income, right? They don't actually see hit your account or move from one place to another. And in turn, you feel like I'm doing all this work, building all this, and I'm not actually realizing it or feeling it. I'm just pushing for tomorrow. So we started making that shift of I'm doing the work today. I want to see some value of it today, but also punt a lot for tomorrow. How do you start kind of making that shift of actually truly letting yourself earn it, right? Truly letting yourself actually take some of that home.
I still struggle a little bit with it. It's like so deeply ingrained with me. Like I had financial insecurity growing up. Like I got kicked out of my parents' house at 18 and didn't feel I had a safety net. So that was that was a deep-seated challenge for me that I'm still working through. Um, Also, like with the company, like I've I have through some soul searching in the last year, I have discovered that I respect other people more than I respect myself. So I'm working a lot on self-love right now to say like, okay, how can I respect myself and not just put other people first? I sort of prided myself on the leaders eat last kind of mentality, and that in many ways I believe held me back. And some of those ways can be expressed like if you think about your tolerance like a battery to say like, okay, um, like when is Sam going to hit his breaking point, right? And if I'm not paying myself and I can't get guac on my Chipotle and I and I'm not taking money out and then I'm paying people twice as much as me that have 10 years less experience and value to the organization, let's say, and then something goes wrong, my tolerance battery is pretty depleted. And so I'm going to be more likely to snap because I'm run ragged. And so if I think about it in that way, it's like you need to give yourself a buffer so that you can withstand and then be a more Dr. Becky. I don't know if you have kids, Sam. Do you have kids?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, when you do, hopefully you find Dr. Becky. She's been great, but I love how she describes parenting. She says you want to be a stable parent, basically. And what she just means is like yeah, you just want to be solid. You don't want to like have these emotional ups and downs and that kind of thing. When you're parenting, the kid needs to feel safety, and so they need to feel like you're there for them no matter what. And I'd say the same probably for my employees is like they need to feel like I'm a rock. And if I'm running myself at the edge here, I'm less likely to not crack and therefore like give them a bad experience, which then causes them anxiety and whatnot. So in many ways, all I'm saying is like part of the growth I've gone through is like now, if moving forward, if I get into something again, I would I'd pay myself appropriately. So I felt fairly treated. I would take more time for myself to recharge. Like I wouldn't be trying to maximize every 15-minute block of the day. I just give more space. So there's a time for more of the hustling. And then once you have the experience, I think you can get just as much done with less effort, and have better mental health probably through the process.
Yeah, and a big point you made that I actually used to tell. So I used to run sales teams in tech before kind of getting to do what I'm doing today. And I used to tell the sellers that if you look at your day as like 1 is the worst day ever and 10 is the best day ever, if you can go live between a 6 and a 7 consistently, you have a very long career in sales, right? Because like being a business owner, right, you can kind of own your own book of business where you have some really good days, some really bad days, and you need a lot of longevity to go run that marathon long term. And, a lot of it applies to personal life too, right? When you look at that buffer. Like I view it more so now kind of being out of my own, run my own business as well, is that I can operate well under stress in terms of work stress. When you look at it as like personal financial stress, that buffer needs to be bigger for me to feel comfortable, right? Because kind of like you, I grew up in that place of like financial insecurity where there's no fallback plan, right? Either you're successful or you go figure it out. And if you can kind of extend that runway and give yourself that breathing room, you can think things through in a much longer term way. You can give yourself more runway to go be a better version of yourself for your partners, for your company, right? To go give yourself that longevity in doing it. And with that in mind, on your end, right, you've now had an exit, right? And if you want to kind of discuss numbers there too, you're welcome to. But do you think having an exit, now that you have potentially the capital or kind of the resources, allows you to go think differently in your next venture? Or if you had the same mentality beforehand, how would that shift things for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. It almost feels like a lottery win for my wife and I because we weren't paying ourselves market rate. And so we weren't, saving even like we were saving when we were in corporate. And so everything, but the business value was growing tremendously. And to your point, it's just paper value. And so, for her specifically, she said like she just thought it was funny money. She's like, none of this is real. So at the end of last year, I redeemed half my stock. So I still have a significant interest in the business. But I was at least able to get liquid on enough to where I feel, okay, I don't need to work anymore. So now that I don't have to work anymore, it's now you can do anything, but you can't do everything. That's sort of the personal gap that I'm trying to fill now. And I'm struggling with it though, because during the business was my hobby and I didn't view the business as my identity, but it was kind of like this hobby that is like you're playing a strategy game or something. And it's like, I've hit level 60 or something. And it's like, you're putting all of your mental energy into it. And also you're getting now I'm recognizing I get reward back with dollars. However, it's like now, even though it wasn't my identity, I'm saying goodbye to that strategy game I was playing. And then there's this other great book called Mastery. In that book, he talks about how you start to love something when you master something, or it can often be the same thing. So when you get good at something, you like doing it because you're good at it. And I feel that when it comes to business, I feel I got good at it. And so in that vein, I'm like, it feels almost like a wasted, it feels like a muscle that's atrophying. It's like you build up this excellent, skill. And then if you decide not to do it anymore, you're just going to let that die off. And it feels like an asset now that I'm letting slowly shrink and die. And so that type of loss is hard for me. And yet, if I go back to the why, I was doing business before because I needed to survive. I felt the financial insecurity. But if I could do anything, would that be what I'd be doing? And I thought maybe at the time I would, but I read Die with Zero 3 times last year, and that book really changed my perspective. And he's like, if you gave yourself space and you were to explore these other things, would you really choose to go into the office every day, or would you maybe do something else? And so now that we have the finances to go do truly anything we want for the rest of our lives, I no longer need to do the business. Yet maybe I just need to finish mourning the idea of like I could let that muscle atrophy, but it's super hard for me because there's other business opportunities that have come to me that I could acquire the business and it would do super well financially. And yet, if I really step back and ask why, believing in this Die with Zero mentality, it would just be because I think it's fun, but also what if I went Scuba Dubai? I don't know if you've ever seen that, Sam, but that's something my wife showed me a couple of years ago. And I'm like, that seems awesome. Let's go to Scuba Dubai. And there are probably 1,000 things like that on this planet. And it's like, so go Scuba Dubai, forget business for a while. And it's like, if that itch is still there so I just turned 40 at 50, like, do you think you can do business? Yeah. Would it really have atrophied that much? Sure. AI this and robotics that, whatever. It wouldn't, I wouldn't be starting over as if I'm like a 20-year-old. So this is part of the self-talk I'm trying to do for myself, Sam, to keep me from buying myself another job. So hopefully that helps you.
Yeah, it does. And it's an interesting point, right? Because like we also like run a community ourselves too of people who are looking to go break free from the corporate world, and they're buying companies, they're buying real estate, and a lot of people have this number, right? If they get to this number, whether it be, call it 20, 30, 40K a month in cash flow that covers what they're living on, and they feel really comfortable with that number. And once they're there, I like to think of it as now you've accomplished that baseline. You can go live how you want to live for that person. And you start figuring out, what do I actually want to go do when I grow up? Right. And for them, they may not have had that big swing. They more so just have that recurring piece of income they're covered to go live. They may not have the liquidity going forward in the bank, but now they start thinking about, okay, this is now covered, right? I've covered my bases. Now, what is it that excites me? What is it that I want to go do? Who do I want to go do that with? What do I want to go work on? I think for you now, you're kind of going through that exercise of what I want to spend my time doing, which is a great place to go be and figuring it out. But I get it too. Like my old corporate boss, I worked for him for 6 years, 3 companies, right? Huge mentor to me as well. He had his first meaningful exit, I think, 26, 27, where with how they lived, like him and his wife could have lived off that forever. And he just is like, I need to go do something, right? I need to go start building something because you get that itch. So I think some people have it and some people don't. And some people have to go fight it, like I think you're doing right now as well.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple things in there. I feel like what I'm trying to tell myself is like, could I look at myself the way I was looking at the business? Like, what if I were to put all my effort that I took studying business into myself? Couldn't that be exciting? Like, isn't that an adventure, like an unknown? I think what is a shame is that I hadn't given myself as much focus outside of the business before to have a few irons in the fire, I guess. I mean, I had my running and adventures and stuff, but I didn't. I already feel like it's not like I stay awake at night thinking about it. So I could have done a little bit more exploration through the process so that afterwards I was like, I got 6 things I want to try or that I want to like work on. Instead, I was super blank slate. It's like, I want to go do these running adventures and stuff, but I've got a 2-year-old, so I can't be gone all the time. And so outside of that, what do I spend my mental calories on? And so right now I'm trying to say, spend the mental calories working on myself. And that's been super helpful. And then like, and hopefully that fills the itch, like, cause it's like, it's like Simon Sinek says, it's an infinite game. Like you can always be working on yourself, similar to like you could always be working on business. And, so for now I'm saying, let's work on myself. Let's say that's the next decade. And then we can poke our heads back up and say, have I had an epiphany and really found purpose? Because I grappled with purpose about 2 years ago, and I'd really tried to force it. And we can get into that if you want, but I basically decided it's not good to force it. And I also think maybe I had a little idealized version of what purpose should be. And so right now, let's follow my curiosity. And outside of my curiosity, it's like, let's spend those other times, like those other moments, trying to reflect and work on myself.
Yeah, and you make a really good point to go back even a few periods ago, talking about your identity wasn't tied to your work, where in your business. Where I think a lot of people have that, where they put all of their effort and focus and who they identify themselves is with their company, their business, their success there. I think when you kind of remove that, like what you're doing now, if putting all that effort on themselves, I think at times people, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, shift that focus from themselves to their business to avoid having that conversation with themselves and like doing that self work as well.
I definitely distracted myself from some of the inner work I could have been doing these last 8 years by just focusing on the business and sort of like shoving that aside. And I can compartmentalize really well. It feels like a superpower, but it's like I got to be cautious because if I compartmentalize too much, it may pop. But yeah, I mean, I think like, I really like that Wheel of Life exercise from Tony Robbins. If it's like, if you do that exercise, then, and I think he got it from someone else, but anyways, it's like, what are the slices of your life that you care about? Mine were friends, family, fitness, financial, and fun. And if you rate those 1 to 10, then you can say like, this is a real example. My family was an 8, my fun was a 3. And it's like, can I accept that my fun is a 3? Or do I want to put more energy there versus focusing on more financial? My financial is also an 8. And if I decide like, hey, it's the season that I want to get my financial to a 10, no problemo. But I'm sacrificing fun, and then I'm not going to have the regret. I think that's what most people struggle with, is regretting later on. But if you're making the knowing choice that I am putting fun aside for now for this, that's okay. The problem for me is I did do that, and now I'm like, well, shoot, but I haven't exercised my fun muscle, and so that's super weak right now. And so figuring out how to have fun has been hard for me, like really, really hard. Like, just I have blank time, but it's like my friends are retired or whatever; they have day jobs, right? So it's like I can't, um, and they live in different cities and stuff, and so I haven't really built much of a network around me here. So that those are the challenges that I'm working through, and I'm decided to make that the adventure right now. Is how do I meet these people? How do I decide to spend time with them? And let's try new things in order to find fun versus feeling rudderless. Like that's a feeling that is very challenging for me. One other thing I wanted to comment on before we scoot too far past it, you had mentioned the money thing, like people have a number in their head. And that's where the Die with Zero book helped me a lot, because I had done some loose math on numbers before, and I was like, I think I need 30 million to like basically have enough to screw up all the time. And then when you actually do them, like when I wrote down everything I think I want to do, like trips and stuff, I'm like, I need like 20% of that. And it's like, oh shoot. So I was working for a really big number for why. And part of that was because I wanted to build buffer so that I could screw up. That was part of it. It's like I can screw up with half of this. But it's like, what are you gonna go screw up if you're not buying another business or whatever? Nothing, right? Like if you're like, this is my itemized receipt of what I think I want to do, and then there's some buffer for more, like allow me to change my mind and more things later. Cool. And also, is it realistic you'll never make another dollar? Probably not. So anyways, itemizing it helped me a lot because it got me to a way different number. And also the Die with Zero track, because then you're not trying to say like, let me do the 3% rule. If you're trying to do the 3% rule, it's very different. But if you're like, I'm going to spend everything and not give anything to like my heirs, then the number is just way smaller than you think. So that was a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah, and I think at times people get super uncomfortable or unsure with those numbers because they have some big round number, right? Like for example, I mean, on different scales, I talk to people, 500 people plus a year who want to go leave their job in some way, and they're making, call it 20K a month, and they're like, hey, I need $30,000 a month in cash flow to go leave my job. And I'm like, really? Because you're paying your 401k, you're paying your investing money, you're putting money in savings, right? If you have that, you can go replace it. How much actually be less than you think? And at times, I think people grossly overestimate some. There's definitely outliers to it. Overestimate how much they actually spend with what they're doing, right? They round up in an aggressive way. Right? The people who you ask them, hey, what time is it? It's 10:15. They say it's 11 o'clock. Those people, when you look at just like how much they actually think they spend, I think you went through the same exercise too of that number's actually a lot smaller and more comfortable doing it, giving yourself that breathing room and confidence that you know your numbers then.
Yeah, you're totally right. There's that, and also like back to the Ramit Sethi stuff. Like, if you get really specific about what brings you joy to spend on, then you can, and then you cut ruthlessly on the other stuff. It's also way smaller too. So here's a just clear example. I used to hem and haw about buying new running shoes, and in reality, like you go through his exercise, and it's like, what would it cost, David, to give yourself an unlimited running shoe budget a year? Maybe $1,000. Like, okay, cool. And what do you not care about? I don't care about clothes. Like I buy the same shirt 5 times over and just wear it again. Okay, cool. So like let yourself have $1,000. You don't actually put a budget on the running shoes. Instead, you just say like, I can take $1,000 hit. So unlimited budget on running shoes. And then the piece that gave me. So I wasn't like, should I try this shoe or should I wait till this next one comes out or whatever? It's like, I got so much relief from that. Same thing with books. Now I have an unlimited book budget, but then just cut ruthlessly on the other things. Like I don't care about clothes at all. Great. So I'm not gonna spend on those. I'll just buy the thing I like 5 times.
Yeah, and it's really important too. Like I've had this conversation with like a really good friend of mine as well of if you actually looked at your life today and you mapped out what things could you go buy or spend on that actually make you happier, it's usually very, very few areas where that spend moves needle in a big way, right? Like for me personally, like where I live is really important, right? Like when people over, we like hosting, we like being able to go have people stay with you, right? Those things are really important. I also work from home and I'm home, 20 plus hours a day. So those things for me were like super high up on my list. So for you, if you're going to look at it as if you're going to go splurge on something, right? Besides running shoes, besides books, right? You had your exit, you and your wife. What was something that either you and her or you or her spent bigger on that like moved the needle for you? And what's something that you may have spent big on that time? You're like, this was a total freaking waste.
I'll give a few things here. Um, so one is for our financial advisor for the last 5 years was telling us to get our windshield fixed because it had a giant crack through the windshield, and he's like, "Guys, you can afford to get your windshield fixed," but we were so just insecure that we didn't get the windshield fixed. So there's things like that. Like the first major purchase we actually made was a snowplow. I mean, we live at 9,000 feet in the mountains of Colorado. It's like and to get out of our neighborhood, somebody in the neighborhood has to plow it. It's a mile long. So it's like, that wasn't even, you should have just had a snowplow. Like that's,
Yeah.
like, so like
Yeah.
the spend on it is weird. But the only thing we've done so far is more just travel. So like I like right afterwards in December, I went to Chile and Argentina and climbed a bunch of mountains, and that was something I would have hemmed and hawed about spending on before, and it was phenomenal. And then we went to Mexico and we paid a travel advisor and just said we gave them like kind of like what we're into, and then they just put us up in a hotel that was 4 times more expensive than we've ever been. Like, and we never would have thought of it. And I was really like anti the idea. Like when the travel advisor was like, "We're gonna put you in a 4-star hotel," or where I don't even know if there's 4 stars, 5 star, whatever it is, it's the most expensive
Sure.
thing
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Mexico. And I was like, I'm not gonna like this. I don't want to be served. Blah blah blah. And it really changed my perspective. I was like, okay, this feels super adventure-y, yet like comfortable. And they were amazing with our son, a 2-year-old. And I thought like traveling, unless you bring like a parent along or somebody, it's like, or do we need to hire like a live-in nanny so we can travel? And it's like, no, these fancy hotels have people that are amazing to watch your kids. And so that just opened my eyes. So I'd say the like luxury travel is something that yeah, really struggled with mentally, like about like, are we going to want to pay for this? And then that also, I guess, changes the number though, right? If you're like, no, I always want to stay in these fancy places. Um, but anyways, this year I said it's more of we're just experimenting. Like, let's try things on for size that we didn't think we'd be into to see if we're into them. And then that can change your perspective. And luckily, like, yeah, I mean, we can spend far more. Our financial guy, we met with him this morning, and he's like, you guys can spend way more than you're spending. Like it's fine. Like you're cool. And so I need that encouragement basically. Um, so there you go.
So, and with that in mind too, right? You're spending more in hotels now, which is a luxury I love myself too, right? Of like traveling places. That's one of the biggest things on my line item budget myself is staying in nice places because you also meet great people too in terms of travel, right? And in terms of staying like the higher end places, which I thoroughly enjoy. But you mentioned I Was Zero, read it 3 times in the last year, and you mentioned you have your 2 year old kid. How do you think about leaving money and gifting money to your kid as they start to get older?
So Nicole and I are a little at I mean, we're still working through it as the answer because like our wealth advisors are like, you could set up this trust and that thing to save taxes and pass on to them and give legacy. But right now, I'm of the mind of I don't want him to be able to do nothing. So I want him to be I want and we're working on a second kid now. So it'd be like I want our kids to be able to um, follow their passion, not be worried about like I was financially insecure because who knows where I would have ended up. Like I was on the verge of going down the professional paintball route. Like I was like, yeah, and that they don't make any money, but it's like I was really into it. Like, so why not? But I couldn't do it. I didn't feel I could do it because of the financial. I felt like I have to start socking away for retirement. And so I'm still happy with how it turned out, but I want them to be able to follow those passions, things that really light them up. So my current thought for me personally, but Nicole's thinking like, I want to help them with the down payment with the house. I want to help with school and give them enough to like kind of. She read the book too, like give them enough to have some life experiences, like a nice whatever honeymoon, some like good family trips and stuff, but not like set up for life. I'm of the mind of like let's give him minimal, almost like maybe it would be like what is the universal basic income? Maybe it's something of that nature. But I care more about retirement. So I never want our kids to think that they have to like if they really hate their job that they've got to stay because they're worried about like, I don't want to work at 60 or 65 or whatever. So the current like bug that's stuck in my head, the earworm, is if for any kid that we have or any of like, my sister's kids or whatever, if you put like $2,000 in a retirement account that they can't access until the age of 70, that's enough for them to retire on at the end of their life. So they never have to do a 401k or whatever. And even if you were to up that to like $6,000, like that now is a gift that we could easily do for any of like our near relatives. It's like, all right, when they're born, here's a $6,000 account. They can't access it until retirement though. Good luck on the in-between. It allows them to not do nothing, but it also allows them to experiment more, like, and hopefully follow their dreams more, where I was more concerned about the end of life care for myself personally. So that's the brainworm that I've got right now.
Yeah, I mean, all really valid points too. I think there's not a right or wrong answer. It's more so what you believe in. But yeah, it's an interesting debate where if they have the access to just more than they need, they may not have the urgency and the creativity to go pursue something, right? But they also, if they don't have enough, they may feel that scarcity piece and go do things that, you know, short themselves in a certain way because they feel like they have to. So I think there's like no right or wrong answer, or something that, just kind of curious your thoughts on that as you kind of, dove deeper and figuring it out.
Yeah, I think Bill Perkins, and that was your author, he also like made a good point of try not to tie your own happiness to what they do with the money. So like, for example, let's say we gave our kid enough to have like basic universal basic income, if you will, through the age of 30. It's like if he decides to like eat Cheetos and watch Netflix or whatever, I have to be okay with that because that's the decision. It's like I've given him the money now. That's what Perkins says. Then you have these oh, I'm going to lose her name all of a sudden. There's this other woman that I really respect, and she's like, no, Mel Robbins. She just wrote the like Let Them book, and she's like, no, if you're paying for someone's like therapy, you should be allowed to figure out like what they're talking about in therapy. And so those are like other ends of the spectrum. I think I line up more with the Perkins route, and also accept that like some people can be late bloomers. Like for me, I didn't go to college until I was 25. It's like, and my parents thought I was a screw up until basically like my late 20s. And so I knowing that I turned out okay, it's like you just got like I think you don't where parents get in trouble is trying to hold their kid to a timeline and be like, now you're 19, why are you taking a gap year? It's like you got to be okay that they're on their own walkabout and let them walk about their life in the time that's right for them. But if you try to contain them too much, it puts a lot of friction, it seems, on the relationship, and it seems like you're setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment.
Yeah, and if you kind of look at the latter example you gave of that person who's paying for therapy, wants to know what's going on, I think there can be a lot of opportunity for resentment in what's going on there because you feel as though that they're waving this financial wand over you, and then in turn they have control over everything you do, and they may end up resenting you and pushing you away because of that, right? So you're using it as a control lever, even if it's well intended.
Totally. And it's one of those, I totally agree. And I don't like feeling like I'm making anybody do anything. So that's why I think it doesn't connect so much with me. And also, like, in reality, it's their life, right? Like, you give birth to somebody, but it's not my life, right? That's their life. And so it's really, what are they proud of? And if they're proud of like spending their 20s on the Cheetos and Netflix train or whatever, it's like, that's their call. It's like I don't get to, just because I birthed them doesn't mean I have that control. So that's why I'm kind of against these trusts and these other ideas. But it's evolving for sure. Like as I work on myself, I think what I've learned is most people sort of like change the way they parent based on what they thought were gaps for them. And that, back to what you said, it's not, doesn't mean it's right.
And David, before we wrap up here too, like when you look at how the kind of company itself, right, in terms of the exit, right, the successful build, and now the resources, right, like how has that shifted how you really think about your purpose going forward, right, in terms of kind of how you spend your time, what you want to work on, or kind of how you look and go refine your identity almost as well.
All right. There's a lot I want to cover here. So buckle up, Sam. So first off, I think of it almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like the financial insecurity was so deeply problematic for me that I just could not really think much about purpose until 2 years ago. And then I started to really think like, well, this is great what we've built. We gave our employees a 4-day, 32-hour work week. We pay them 30% higher than the competition. We cover their healthcare fully. Like, we're just awesome culture, done a great job for them. And many of them have gotten married and had kids and so on. And then I was like, but we're not curing cancer. So that was the idealistic version of like, shouldn't I be doing something that's doing more for the world than slinging ads on Google and Facebook or what have you? And for a little while, I got some satisfaction from the like, let's let these people have good lives, and then how can I also make them better people while they're here? Like, we did very open book management, financial management. So like that, some of them left and started their own businesses, and I was excited about that. Um, did a lot of like personal development stuff. We gave them all coaches. We gave them a personal finance person that we paid for. So that gave me satisfaction. Then after that, it was still like, well, but I'm still not curing cancer. So I feel like this is just me trying to fill that bucket. So I did a personal retreat, and because I had really been trying to force the like, what should I do next, or how should I fill that purpose bucket? And my aha moment on my personal retreat was, if I wasn't married today, could I just go out and find a wife, like, or find love, basically? Because my thought of purpose is that it's probably something that you love. You just gives you this really great fulfillment feeling, and that you can't get it out of your head. And that's what it was like when I met my wife. And if that's true, I just allowed myself to be open to meet my wife, to find love. I didn't go out seeking it. And so that's how I got past the purpose thing, is like, so if I can't force it, then I just need to remain open, and I need to put myself in positions to try things where purpose may strike me. And then the other thing that gave me a little bit of like relief was, there's this Harvard psychologist, and he studied purpose, and I forget his name now, but he said that only 20% of people ever find purpose. So 80% never do. And so then that made me think like, why would I have an ego to think I'm going to be one of these special 20% that find it? That doesn't mean don't try. That just means continue to put myself in those situations, allow myself to try new things, and hopefully it will occur to me. So for now, I think of things like in 10-year blocks, like, what do I want to do for the next 10 years? And so for now, that 10 years is like, well, I've got my health and my wealth and my time, like Dan Perkins says, let me go out and enjoy that. Like, what would 12-year-old me think was badass to do? That's the way I'm trying to plan my adventures for now, because I still have all the health, and I have the financial means to do whatever I feel like doing. And now it's more about curating that stuff. So I've been trying to find people that can help me bring me ideas. So like, the stuff I want to do isn't expensive. Like, the thing I'm trying to do this year, that really excites me, is a persistence hunt. Have you ever heard of these before?
I
Okay.
haven't, no.
Yeah, it's like before, like, the indigenous people had like bows and arrows and stuff, they would basically chase an animal until it collapsed. And then that's how they hunt it. So it's persistence hunting. So you could be chasing it for 12 hours, it could be 2 days, but whatever, you chase it till it falls down. I think that sounds, I'm not a hunter, but I'm like, that sounds like an adventure. Like, I don't know when the end is, but let's go do that. But I could do that with these deer in my yard. Like, it's not expensive to go do. So anyways, let me go do those things that I think 12-year-old me would think were cool, and work on myself for the mental stimulation for now. And then if that purpose strikes me, if I find my cure cancer thing, kick ass. It's kind of like Brian Johnson, I'm sure you're familiar with, but
Yep.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, when he did his search, he thought it was going to be one thing, and then he landed on like, oh shoot, like living forever could be my thing, and the stars aligned. But that took him, I think it took him 7 years, like after he exited, something like that, before he landed on this like, let's not die thing. And so that's great inspiration for me. It's like, cool, dude, you don't need to rush it. Just slow down, go explore, and then love will strike you, and when it does, you'll figure it out.
That's a great way to go put it. But David, awesome having you on today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks for the convo.